Hi, I'm retired NYPD Detective Vic Ferrari, and welcome to NYPD Through the Looking Glass podcast, where you'll get unique insight into the New York City Police Department. Before we get started, I encourage you to check out my Amazon author page, where you'll find my series of behind-the-scenes NYPD books. They're $10 paperback or $2.99 ebook download, including my latest NYPD Presumption and Dysfunction. Let's get to the true crime section of the New York Post, and then we'll get to this week's story. The feds are looking into overtime abuse at the NYPD's elite aviation unit under the ouster of NYPD Chief Winston Faison, who allegedly approved payments for rescue training for cops who had nothing to do with rescues. Lakeisha Smith, common spelling, Lieutenant Winston Wright, and Detective Tanisha Facey, Faison's driver, made up to 20 hours of overtime per month funded by Federal Maritime Safety Training Grant administered by FEMA. Now, none of these three are licensed pilots or mechanics or have anything to do with training maneuvers, according to police sources. Chief Faison was transferred by the NYPD last week as the Federal Aviation investigated safety issues at the unit. He has since retired, NYPD documents show. Lieutenant Smith has also filed her retirement papers. The FAA went to the unit's headquarters earlier this month and demanded to see records about safety issues, including a hard landing and tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage to an aircraft during a hovering exercise, the Post revealed last week. I worked with a guy from Brooklyn who said hoovering, and facade. This matter is under investigation, an NYPD spokesman said in response to an email asking about safety and overtime issues. Chief Faison also didn't get permission from headquarters at One Police Plaza to leave the city and fly to an airport. He also didn't record that he had landed in Farmingdale, Long Island, and instead only a stop in Islip where the NYPD keeps its spy plane. Now, who the hell knew the NYPD had a spy plane? But they do, and it's out in Long Island. This part is a larger... The FBI is looking at the misuse of overtime grant money as part of a larger investigation. This is bad because they're going to take it from the Internal Affairs Bureau. When the feds get involved in something, they're not looking to take 30 vacation days or a year's probation. It's quite possible someone's going to jail if they were screwing around with putting in for overtime, federal money. And what a lot of people don't realize is the federal government's like a drug dealer with police departments and schools. What they'll do is they'll go, hey, how would you like $30 million, $40 million? But there's always strings attached. There's always something you have to do or comply with as part of getting that money. Just like I was talking to that guy last week that's restoring, Jason Caputo, who's restoring Eddie Burns' car. I was asking him why the police cars are white as opposed to the iconic blue and white. He said the federal government, so that's federal money, and they're basically telling you what to do. But if the feds are involved, they're going to be sniffing around, and it's quite possible someone's going to go to jail. A Florida deputy sheriff hauled an alligator out of a family's pool and even buckled it up in the back seat of his patrol car in a wild video that one fan said, Florida's grit at its finest. Officer Nathan Richardson of the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office wasted no time wrangling the roughly 4-foot alligator out of a swimming pool in St. Augustine while the worried homeowner looked on. Richardson used the pool skimmer to first drag the young gator out of the pool deck before grabbing it by its neck and wrestling it to the pavement. The deputy used his free hand to hold onto the alligator's tail before picking it up. The gator, having likely realized resistance would be futile, remained relatively still during the process. The homeowner quickly concluded that Richardson must have been raised locally to have such proficiency with subduing the gator. Florida grown at its finest, the man said as Richardson headed to his patrol car with the gator. Richardson then placed the young gator in the back seat of his patrol car, tucked its tail in before realizing he could easily secure the reptile better. You know what? Let me buckle you in, he said. Richardson then drove the strapped-in alligator to a nearby pond away from the neighborhood and freed it, according to the St. John's Sheriff's Office. Can't you just give it to, I don't know, Gator World, or I don't know, make gator fritters out of this thing? You're just kind of moving it down the block. You know it's going to go into someone else's pool. And listen, I'm no Crocodile Dundee, and I've spoken about this before. I'm not touching one of those things. You wind up getting bitten one of those things, you get that flesh-eating bacteria. A notorious butt-sniffing freak was thrown behind bars after he was allegedly caught putting his schnoz near the backside of an unsuspecting woman at a Nordstrom's rack in California. Khalees Karen Crowder, 3 names, 36 years old, was arrested Tuesday after he was captured on security cameras crouching near a woman and sniffing her rear end at the women's section of the Burbank Empire Center department store, according to the Burbank Police Department. Police said the registered sex offender, who saw that coming, was seen trailing the innocent shopper around the store before sticking his nose where it doesn't belong, a disturbing act he's already been busted for multiple times, so he's obviously not getting the message. He is currently on active parole for a series of lewd offenses dating back to 2021, police said, who initially responded to the retail chain following reports of a suspicious man lurking around the women's apparel section. Crowder made national headlines in August 2023 after a viral TikTok video showed him sneaking up behind a woman at Burbank Barnes & Noble, sniffing their derrieres. The career sex predator had reportedly been locked up previously for indecent exposure, in addition to burglary and robbery charges. Crowder was charged with intent to commit a crime and is being held on $100,000 bail. Obviously, this guy isn't getting the message to stay away from there. What a friggin' weirdo. In Tallahassee, an employee dressed as a Chuck E. Cheese mascot, Jermel Jones, was arrested on July 23rd for stealing a patron's credit card and making fraudulent purchases. Police found the card on him while he was still in a giant mouse costume, leading to a surreal arrest scene in front of shocked children. Can you even imagine this? Guy dressed up as a Chuck E. Cheese mascot, stealing people's credit cards and then using it to buy crap? All right, so this last story is going to dovetail into what we're going to talk about. A New York City nut job busted for a naked boat ride escapes from hospital in makeshift disguise. The disturbed man busted for a naked joyride on 2 stolen boats in a Manhattan marina escaped from a local hospital Wednesday, disguised with a lab coat with no shoes, cops said. Stephen Blasetti, 36 years old, was being held on grand larceny, chrome possession stolen property, and reckless endangerment charges in connection to the naked Saturday romp escaped from Columbia University Irving Medical Center around 6:30 a.m. Said he was last seeing a white lab coat, blue hospital pants, and hospital socks, but no shoes when he bolted from the hospital's Milstein building on Fort Washington Avenue near 168th Street, police sources say. This happened about a couple of weeks ago. This guy hasn't been recaptured. So, I mean, he's a maniac, but he's not stupid. And he kind of looks like McDreamy from that Patrick Dempsey guy from one of those doctor shows from way back. I never followed it. Columbia Presbyterian Hospital is a really good hospital. That Milstein Pavilion, I remember being in there one time with an injured cop, and there was a woman playing the piano in there for like people just waiting around in the visiting room. So it's a really nice hospital. I got a funny story. I want to go into how the NYPD handles escaped prisoners, but I'll tell a quick story before that. I used to work with this female cop every now and then, and she was always getting injured. She's just one of these people. She would always get injured. And I forget what happened, but she got glass in her eye or something. She got something bad in her eye. So I rushed her to Columbia Press. We go in there. They got us in the emergency room, and she's being triaged. The nurse is talking to her. And right next to us, there's a junkie, a black guy on a gurney, and he's high as a kite, but he's not bothering anyone. And I kind of hear the nurse talking to him. I'll never forget the guy's name, Mr. Blunt. And she's like, "Mr. Blunt, are you okay?" And the guy is all bundled up. He's laid out. He's got the blanket on. He's high as a kite. He's just sleeping. And like for 10 minutes, I'm hearing 2 conversations. I'm hearing our nurse talking to the female cop getting checked out. And I'm hearing this Mr. Blunt, and the nurse is at wit's end with this guy because he just won't answer her. So the doctor comes and he's like, "Mr. Blunt," same thing. He goes, "You know what? F this. Nurse, get me, I don't know, how many cc's of Narcan?" And I told the female cop, I says, "Get up." And she goes, "Why?" I says, "Just get up." I says, "Because all hell's going to break loose in a couple of seconds." And they stuck that Narcan in his arm. And when they pulled out that plunger, he went from being high as a kite to withdrawal. He jumped up in the gurney, and then they gave him like a little paper bowl. He just started throwing up on all over the place on the side of the walls and stuff. And I remember one of the nurses saying, "Mr. Blunt, would you do that in your house?" And I'm like, "He's homeless." Like, you didn't see that coming? But anyway, I want to go into how the NYPD handles escapes and escaped prisoners. And the training in the police academy is bare minimal from what I remember about dealing with prisoners and stuff. And they basically just show you how to handcuff people and how to defend yourself. But there's really not a lot of emphasis on training on how to deal with prisoners. So it's baptism by fire when you first start dealing with this stuff. And I remember as a rookie cop, I got assigned to the 4-2 precinct, and I'm a rookie. And one of the cops in my precinct lost a prisoner. So what happens is, in the old days, when Bronx Central Booking would fill up with prisoners, they couldn't accept any more perps. They would start lodging them out. So what would happen is, let's say Bronx Central Booking could hold 250 prisoners. 151, they got to go somewhere else. So what they do is the borough starts opening up cells. So every NYPD precinct has between 5 and 30 jail cells. So usually they'll open the 4-2 first because it was closest to Bronx Central Booking, and the 4-2 had a lot of cells. I think the 4-2 had like 30 jail cells. So what'll happen is, before they see the judge, they go to the cells. And then when Bronx Central Booking starts moving along and they drop below the 250 people mark, then the paddy wagon will show up. They'll take all the prisoners out of the 4-2. They'll put them on a daisy chain, and they'll run them up to Bronx Central Booking. So there was this white kid who, his name was Noel J. Calise, and he wound up being on America's Most Wanted. And he was in the jail cells of the 4-2. Now, I knew who he was. A, I knew who he was from my neighborhood. And B, I had seen him on America's Most Wanted, but I don't know if America's Most Wanted was on before or after this escape. But anyway, he's in the cells. He's complaining of an appendicitis or something. This cop from my precinct went alone. They give you the prisoner, you handcuff him, and he brought him to Bronx Lebanon Fulton Center on Fulton Avenue. And Noel J. Calise escapes. I think he uncuffed him for a second, they jumped up and ran out. Well, the cop mate told a story that the prisoner took his radio and bashed him in the head a couple of times. But then what wound up happening, if memory serves me correctly, there was a couple of the hospital staff that said after the prisoner escaped, he went into a closet and hit himself in the head with the radio a couple of times. So that was kind of a gray area. He didn't get suspended. He lost a bunch of vacation days. But to go into Noel J. Calise, he was a car thief, but he was more of a prolific burglar. And he was hitting a lot of rich people's homes in Westport, Connecticut, Greenwich, Connecticut. And he was also a car thief. And he got picked up on a stolen car charge, I think in the 4.8 or the 4.9, gave a phony name. And because he probably had 1 million wanted cards. There was detectives all over the tri-state area looking to grab this kid. And while he was in the cells, he pretends that he's, got an appendicitis, and then he escapes. Wound up getting caught after the America's Most Wanted thing went on. He wound up getting caught in a short stay motel in Rockland County, and he did a couple of years. Then he got out, and then he went back in federally. I don't know where he is now, if he's in jail. The wild thing about that is, after he got out of jail, 5 or 6 years later, my partner and I pulled him over in Hunts Point, which is a car area. And he's a car thief, but his car was fine and everything. And he had a Maryland driver's license. And I go, dude, you're not from Maryland. He goes, I was living there for a while. I come to find out, when he got out of jail, he wound up living with and was dating with one of the producers from America's Most Wanted, because they used to film that show in the Washington, D.C. area. And he wound up hooking up with one of the producers of the show. So back then, if you lost a prisoner, you'd lose a couple of vacation days depending on the circumstances, depending on how the duty captain wrote up the 49. But over time, especially when little Ray Kelly came back the second time to become police commissioner, they weren't screwing around. So my dealings with prisoners, and I had 2 prisoners try to escape on me. The first time was same time, 4-2, I'm a rookie cop. You would get station house security quite a bit, day 12, 4 to 12 midnights. And the reason they always, and sometimes they'd have 2 people doing station house security, one guy inside, to basically act as the goalie that, EDPs and stuff didn't get next to the desk, and to kind of farm things out. The second person was outside because of the amount of cars that used to get broken into. So this is like 1988. Crack epidemic is running wild. And we had a lot of cops' cars parked going up 3rd Avenue, and you also had vouchered vehicles, like stolen cars that hadn't gone to the pound yet, so they're parked there. And it was nothing to come out to your car after doing a 4 to 12 or something, and you see your radio missing, or someone broke the window and helped themselves to your change and what other crap you had in your car. So what I used to do is, because I used to get bored on station house security, if you stood out there, no one was going to break into the car. So what I would do is I would go on the second floor of the 4-2, and I would open the window, and I would just kind of hang out and watch. Within 10, 15 minutes, you'd see a crackhead walking up 3rd Avenue, looking around. And I caught a crackhead steal a windshield off a vouchered car. I kid you not. I saw him with a razor or doing something around the windshield. By the time he started messing with the windshield, I ran out of the locker room, ran down the stairs, came out of the station house. This son of a bitch already had a windshield underneath his arm, and he was walking down 3rd Avenue into the 4-0. He sees me coming, he drops the windshield. It breaks into a million pieces, right? So I pick up I'm a rookie. I pick up a couple of shards of glass and put it in my pocket because this is evidence, right? And I bring him into the 4-2, and the desk officer was pleased. He goes, all right, you're doing your job. So I cuff him up, go to his pockets and everything. Now, the 4-2 in the old days, the holding cells was kind of catty corner from the desk. So you kind of wide out in the open. So you really, you shouldn't try to escape there because there's all eyes on you. And there was a detective there from Major Case who had arrested a guy who's an old man. The detective he's probably like my age, but he looked like an old man. Locked up some guy for arson. He said, officer, he goes, your prisoner's trying to escape. I go, what? And in the 4-2 on the wall, there were these rings where you could put the handcuff through the ring and the perp could sit in a chair, but he was cuffed to a ring, couldn't walk around free in the cage. I go, what do you mean he's trying to escape? He goes, he's trying to bend your handcuffs on that metal ring. I just saw him. So I walk into the cells, and sure enough, he damaged a set of handcuffs. So I charged him with attempted escape, and then the Bronx District Attorney's Office, are you sure he was trying to escape? Like maybe the cuff was too tight on his wrist, and that's why he bent the other cuff on the ring. I'm like, no, he tried to escape. So another time, a couple of years later, I'm in Bronx Task Force, and I'm working with this guy who doesn't like me, doesn't like the fact that I'm making too many arrests. All he talked about, it was election day, and we were doing a 10-6. And all he talked about was, don't get us involved in anything because I want to vote today. Okay, whatever. So we're in the 4-1, and we're driving on the underbelly of the Bruckner, and we're coming up on Southern Boulevard where the new 4-1 precinct is. But back then, I don't know what was there, but the 4-1 precinct wasn't there. It used to be on Simpson Street. And I think it was a Mazda, one of those little Mazdas. And the Mazda is sitting in the side of this. It got T-bone. So you got a Mazda T-bone, and you got a woman in a car, and she's yelling and screaming. I look in the car, and the guy in the Mazda is like borderline unconscious. He's in a fog. So this cop, he stopped. You know what I mean? He stopped for the accident, and he's one of these guys, everything's a production. He goes into the trunk. He takes out road flares. He starts putting down road flares. He's got the lights going. So I said, all right, you want me to start getting everyone's information? He goes, yeah. So I get the woman's information, her insurance card and stuff. I call for EMS. The guy's not, he's just kind of he got a concussion. He's talking, but he's kind of out of it. I call for an ambulance, and I says, I can't get an answer out of this guy. He's just, and the guy that I was working with spoke fluent Spanish. I go, I can't get an answer out of him. He says, well, he goes, I'll be there in a second. I says, all right, because I couldn't get his license and registration. So while I'm handing this guy this stuff, we had a mobile digital computer. So I run the plate of the Mazda. Comes back stolen. This guy starts flipping out. This is all your fault. I wanted to vote today. I go, oh, hold on. I'll take the collar. If you're so worried about, you can go home at 6:00. I'll take the collar, right? So EMS comes, they check him out, and I throw cuffs on the guy immediately, even before EMS comes, right? I didn't know if it was an act, but he was kind of concussed. So I wound up going by myself with the prisoner to Lincoln Hospital. Prisoners love to escape from hospitals, and because cops let their guards down in a hospital. But I'm with this guy, and he's getting an X-ray on something. I don't know if his head or his leg, I forget. And it was like a little room. There was only one way in, one way out. And the X-ray tech goes, do you want to be in there with him with the X-ray? I says, not really. I says, I'll stand outside. He can't get out. He said, no. So the X-ray tech, you know how they do. They put the blanket up to here on the guy, or whatever they were X-raying, right? And he leaves, and there was a problem with the X-ray machine. So he got one set of X-rays off. So anyway, I cuffed the guy to the gurney. And while I step out, the X-ray guy is looking through the window. He goes, your prisoner's trying to escape. I says, what are you talking about? He goes, he's trying to bend your cuffs. I go, you got to be kidding me. Walk in, and he's like, oh. I says, bent my cuffs. So again, out 2 sets of cuffs, go down to Bronx Central booking, charge him with attempted escape. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Then I go to the narcotics division, and you're locking up guys that know this, that worked in the narcotics division, especially in the mid 90s. I mean, it was nothing to lock up 10, 15 people at a time. So we bring like 10, 15 prisoners to the 2-3 precinct. We process them. You bring the prisoners in, the arresting officer, the undercover, and the sergeant. They go upstairs. They're going through the property. They're typing up their buy reports. The field team downstairs is strip searching people. They're taking their belts, their shoelaces. They're putting it in envelopes so they don't hang themselves. They're fingerprinting them. They're debriefing them. It's like a well-oiled machine if you got a good team. So we got all the prisoners we got taken care of. My partner and I ran to there was this place in the 2-3 on First Avenue, I think it was. Made great Italian food right off the FDR Drive. Inexpensive, too. And we get, like, chicken and veal parm sandwiches and everything for the team, right? So we come back to the 2-3, and we're sitting there, and I'm handing out the food. And I'll never forget, I'm in the muster room of the 2-3, and I didn't have the P-van that day. So it was 2 cops doing the P-van. It was this 2 detectives, and one was a female detective, and she was useless. And I see them leading. They weren't on I don't think they were on a daisy chain. I think they were all rear cuffed. And I see them leading, like, I don't know how many prisoners, but it's a bunch of prisoners. We see them being let out. And I said, all right, see you later. I'm sitting down. I'm eating a chicken parm, a veal parm, right? Not like, I don't know, a minute or two later, the female detective just kind of comes moseying into the muster room. No sense of urgency. And she goes, one of the prisoners escaped. What? Yeah, he just took off. Everybody throws down their food, right? Come out of the 2-3. And I think the 2-3 is on like 101st, 102nd Avenue. So run down, I think, to First Avenue, right? And anyone's ever worked in the 2-3 in the summertime, the street is just full of people. It's like, where's Waldo? And I'm looking back and forth. I know he's rear cuffed, so he can't run that fast. I'm looking. I see across the street, going into the courtyard of the housing project, a guy running with his hands cuffed behind his back. So me and this other detective, like, chasing the guy. And if he gets into that housing project, they're going to shut the door. He's going to go into an elevator, and we're never going to see him again. And luckily, we were able to tackle him just before he got into they were holding the door open for him so he could get in. Dragged him back, charged him with attempted escape. But in those days, if you had an attempted escape or an escape and you got the guy back right away, they wouldn't hurt you. If you lost the prisoner, you'd lose a couple of vacation days. But then little Ray Kelly came around and they started suspending guys for losing a prisoner. And I get it. I mean, I never lost a prisoner. You don't let them out of your sight. You know, sometimes it's just something as innocent as the guy just saw a chance and takes off. And other times it could be a really bad guy that you don't want out there. And, you know, a cop could get hurt pursuing this guy, or a civilian could get hurt pursuing this guy. It depends on what they're wanted for. And, you know, some of these people are very desperate. But in closing with, and I don't know if I told this story before, I'm in auto crime and we tracked this stolen car through summonses to a motel parking lot by Kennedy Airport. And it was 3 of us in a car. And we came up with a plan that when whoever got into the car, I was going to take the car on head on because it was backed into a spot. We'll just jump up and grab it. It's a guy and a girl. We see them putting shit into the trunk. As soon as they get in, we roll up. Girl was driving. 2 of us jumped out. The way it was situated, we got the girl. We're cuffing up the girl, and I look on the other side of the car, and another detective is in the fight of his life with this teenager. They're going at it, right? So as soon as the female's cuffed up, I run around the car, and just as I go to put my hands on the kid, he broke free of the other detective. I stuck my foot out. Boom! He goes down. We jump on top of him. And if you've ever fought somebody on blacktop, it's like fighting on the surface of the sun. It's fucking hot. You're burning yourself. You're scraping yourself. Get this kid cuffed up, and he's got a handgun in his pocket. It's like, oh, shit, that's why he put up such a fight. So we call for a 105 radio call. 105 shows up. It's 2 young cops, and I tell them they're taking the prisoner, they're taking the guy. And I said, do me a favor. I said, watch this guy. He tried to escape. He's got a gun. He's badass. Okay. They disregard what I say. They put him in the back seat of their radio car. No one sits in the back with him, which is NYPD protocol. Another detective jumps into the stolen car, and I'm in a Pathfinder, so I'm following. So it's 3 vehicles caravanning, and I'm in the middle car. I'm behind the radio car. We get off, I think Winchester Boulevard. We get off the exit, and I see the kid in the back seat wiggling around. I go, what the fuck is he doing? Next thing I know, that door opens up. He pops out front cuffed, and he's gone. I said, oh, shit. So I'm out the sidewalk, and I'm telling Bok Choy, my old partner, I go, open the door and hit him. Throws open the door. We just miss him. Go around the block. I tell Bok Choy, watch the prisoner in the car. I'm running up and down. You don't really want to put this over because if the duty captain catches wind, someone's going to get suspended, but someone put it over. This Indian kid see me with my gun and shield out, and he goes, you looking for a black kid? I said, yeah. He goes, he just ran into that yard. I said, okay. I push open this like wooden fence. I look in. The kid sees me. He dives underneath the parked car. I says, perfect. So I go over the radio and it's basically said something like, Autocrime Portable, I got what we're looking for in the back of this, trying to give the description of the house, right? Off-duty cop sees what's going on. He comes running in the backyard. He sees me. He goes, I'm on the job. I said, okay. The owner of the house comes out. He's a retired cop, and they want to kick this guy's ass. And I'm like, I'm retiring in like a year or two. It ain't happening. So I'm protecting this piece of shit from getting his ass kicked. Sprayed him with mace. Still didn't want to come from underneath the car. Drag him out, cursing, spitting. I mean, just putting up a fight. So we get him into the 105. I call my sergeant. I explain to him what happens. He tells our commanding officer. Now, the auto crime division, when I first got there, I had 2 really good COs. The first 2 that I had were really good. The next 2 sucked. So now we're into the sucking end of things. So my sergeant tells the commanding officer, who shows up. Pretty sure he showed up. Did he show up or he called? I know he got himself involved in this somehow. And he's trying to, and he's like, well, don't charge him with escape. And I'm like, we went over the air with this. You know what I mean? He's like, well, he didn't really escape. And I'm saying to myself, you're handcuffed. You jumped out of the back seat of a police car. I could see this going to trial and the defense attorney bringing it up. So I said, no, we're charging him with escapes. Dick Bok Choi took that collar, and we get a phone call about a week or 2 later from an ATF agent who was very interested in that gun because that gun was traced to a homicide and shooting. And what it was is our prisoner had baby's mama drama with another perp, and they got into an argument. Our perp took the gun that we recovered and shot the guy in the ass. So when the police come, the guy that took a round in the ass isn't cooperating because he wants to get a gun and kill our perp in street court, wants to settle it. But before he can get a gun to finish off our perp knows what's going to happen. He goes back a second time and puts one in his head. So the gun we recovered, 2 bullets, 1 in the ass, 1 in the head, went to trial. He was convicted, got 25 to life at least from what I can remember. But just thought I'd go into how the NYPD handles these, just wanted to go into how the NYPD handles escapes. This crazy guy that stole 2 boats and he was naked. They still haven't gotten him yet. He'll turn up somewhere. So as always, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, especially my listeners in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, Newton, Massachusetts, Bayamon, Puerto Rico, West New York, New Jersey, Altus, Oklahoma, and Largo, Florida. If you work in law enforcement and have an interesting criminal background, please drop me a note on Twitter, Instagram, @VicFerrari50. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you enjoyed the content, check out my Amazon author page where you can preview all my NYPD books for free, including NYPD Presumption and Dysfunction. Thanks again, everyone, for supporting the podcast, and I'll have another episode out next week. Take care.